Today, Europe's defence ministers have said that they see no sign of an end to the war in Ukraine. This given Russia's ongoing assaults on the battlefield and the apparent failure for any peace process worth a name coming from the United States' efforts. Hence, Europe is taking the lead in providing support. In the meantime, Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, the man who repeated numerous Putin talking points in an interview with Tucker Carlson after his last meeting with the Russian leader, he is back in Moscow. Indeed, at the time of shooting this video, he was meeting with President Putin. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the visit was not expected to be momentous or to yield major breakthroughs. The Telegraph was reporting today that Witkoff is about to tell Putin that he must sign a ceasefire this month or else face sanctions. A threat which hasn't seemed to land significantly. Now, whether the attention will be focused at all by the fact that Trump posted a relatively vague message on the matter remains to be seen. He said this: Russia has to get moving. Too many people are dying, thousands a week, in a terrible and senseless war. A war that should never have happened and wouldn't have happened if I were president. Trump's claim that it would never have happened if he'd been president is a much repeated, untestable counterfactual, of course. The only claims he's made that are testable are the ones where he said that once he was president, the war would be over quickly, either within 1 day or within 1 month, depending which statement you were listening to. Those claims failed that test. Doesn't seem that Vladimir Putin is especially bothered by the fact. Putin indeed was boasting today in St. Petersburg that Russia's fleet is now fully equipped with the most modern weapons, by which he meant strategic nuclear forces, just to wave that stick around again. The dialogue between Trump and Putin seems like a will they won't they movie where you kind of already know from the very beginning that they just won't. Maybe that's why the US ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink, is stepping down. Reportedly, the move follows increasing policy disagreements with the Trump administration. The Ukrainian leadership had not appreciated either how her messaging had shifted to match the Trump team outlook. So the Financial Times reviewed her posting on Twitter and found that in the 75 days before Trump's inauguration, she posted critically about Russia's attacks 53 times. But in the 75 days after the arrival of Trump, she mentioned Russia at all just 5 times, and none of those were placing blame on the country for its attacks. So since that's the state of play, the fight goes on. The UK and Germany co-chaired the latest Ukraine Defence Group meeting today, a meeting that was the first of its kind not to have a senior US Pentagon official present. Pete Hegseth did join remotely. After the meeting, which involved 50 nations, it was announced that a further $24 billion would be allocated to military aid for Ukraine. This comes soon after Ukraine reported that 2 Chinese citizens had been captured fighting for Russia in eastern Ukraine. President Zelensky said that Ukraine knows of more than 150 Chinese nationals fighting on Russia's side. Now, China itself has said that it does not support its nationals taking part in any military operations, and there's no proof to date that they are there with state support. President Zelensky probably wishes they were, since it might be the one thing that would focus President Trump's mind on maybe providing more support to Ukraine. But the presence of videos on TikTok and other platforms from Chinese nationals fighting in the war seems to confirm their presence, but also their independence. For example, one fighter said he'd been a firefighter before, making the equivalent of $400 a month, but he could make 5 times that fighting as a mercenary for Russia. Ironically, some of those videos also complain about the inhuman treatment of the soldiers by the Russians. Mercenaries confirmed reports that the Russians, quote, don't treat us like humans and use them as cannon fodder. Meanwhile, Ukraine and the US have been meeting again today to have another go at coming to agreement on a minerals deal. I must say, I find it slightly baffling at this stage that the Ukrainians haven't just concluded that Trump is trying to fleece them and walked away. Since they agreed in principle on terms, the Oval Office meltdown happened, and then the Trump team came back with a rewritten deal that was basically the sort of thing you would impose on a defeated opponent with extreme prejudice. Not something you'd expect anyone in their right mind to voluntarily sign. Basically, give us your minerals in perpetuity. Kyiv has employed consultants to help them wade through the details of the legalese, expecting, I imagine, that every sub-clause is likely to be hiding half a dozen gotchas that the Americans are hoping they won't notice until it's too late. And since Trump has shown a willingness to tear up any deal that he finds inconvenient at any time, why would you even give them a chance to do you over? It's not as though if they sign this deal, we're expecting the Americans to suddenly start supporting them on the battlefield again, something that they refuse to sign up to. But the talks are happening, so we will see what emerges. Reportedly, Trump is now sizing up Pakistan, which also has high quantities of lithium, not to mention copper and gold, so expect an equally generous deal proposal flying in their direction sometime. The open question is this: since Trump remains in a hurry on the Ukraine war and Putin remains playing the long game and pretty unconcerned by Trump's wishes, at what point will Trump actually shift position on Ukraine? The threat of sanctions suggests that it's not looming because it's a token imposition that would mean nothing to Moscow at this point, just for face-saving purposes. The truth is that, to all appearances, the Americans find themselves impotent to move this conflict on. They don't have credibility, they don't have the seriousness of purpose, they don't have the skills to match Putin to any degree that could amend his course from however he's decided to already set it. And with the US taking on the world with its tariffs and completely going for self-harm with a trade war with China, it's hard to see that this is going to make it back onto the priority list anytime soon. Whether that's a blow or whether it's a benefit for Ukraine rather remains to be seen.